Welcome to Coffee with Kyle. I'm Kyle Ridgway. Good evening. This evening, a thing that's on my mind that kind of actually just popped into mind this afternoon is the concept of tolerance to new ideas or being open-minded or open-mindedness. You may have been in discussions with people or observed discussions or online social media interactions where someone said, oh, you're not being open-minded, or be open-minded to either a new position, a new treatment technique, a new idea. This applies to all facets of our life, I think. And I think there's a dichotomy to new ideas. So there is the concept of being open-minded, and there's a kernel of truth in that position, and that is that we should be careful of having what may be termed belief creep or having blinders on in regards to what we think we know and the certainty with which we think we know it. So there is some truth there that needs to be heeded and I think applied. The flip side of that is that to be truly open-minded, you would equally consider the dichotomy or the dichotomous side of a position or a proposition or a claim. And so what that means is that you would equally consider that the thing is foundationally true or false. And obviously it's much more nuanced and complex than that. But essentially that would be the foundational philosophical grounds of being open-minded. You would equally consider a proposition to be both true or either true or false. And you would put no prejudgment on whether something was true or false. That would be true open-mindedness. But none of us reason in that way. We are actually we use a little bit what would be considered Bayesian reasoning. In other words, we come in to any encounter with some kind of baseline probabilities or assumptions about the nature of certain truth claims or our assessments of certain ideas based on other knowledge or knowledge of that thing specifically. So we're always kind of weighing the scales, so to speak, if you wanted to simplify the metaphor. Further, one of the critiques that I have of the you just need to be open-minded mindset or request is that being truly open-minded is just being a garbage can. That's a term that a saying I didn't come up with, but I like it a lot. Because if you're being truly open-minded and you're being truly open to any idea or proposition or frame of reference or point of view or proposed truth claim or proposed conclusion or assessment of anything, then you truly are a garbage can. You're letting everything in and you have no filter. And so I think there's a middle ground here, which is the less you know, the more open to either side of the argument you need to be, because you have less knowledge, you have less baseline information that can help inform you. That being said, the more you know, I think almost the more conscious you need to be of the creep of certainty. In other words, I'm accruing some knowledge and therefore I'm becoming a little more certain. So this is also termed the Dunning-Kruger effect. As well as you have more depth in one area, you may actually have some blind spots and actually have less breadth in other areas. And therefore you may be more prone to make errors in thinking or think that your depth in one area translates to another. The dichotomy there, of course, is there are foundational ways of thinking or foundational concepts that likely cross disciplines, and therefore coming up with a mental tool set or a mental model of roughly how the world works or how things work can be helpful in parsing out these new ideas. So like most things, I think the tolerance to new ideas or propositions is a dichotomy, and it's a dichotomy based on your knowledge base, but it's also a dichotomy based on what you're trying to accomplish. There's a lot of layers to it. And usually what I see happening, or my observation or experience is that people are frustrated when folks don't consider or don't appear to consider their ideas or their assessments of certain thoughts, of certain things they've read, of certain kind of conclusions or propositions. And that may be true, But sometimes people are not considering a certain proposition, and it's not because they're not open-minded. So that charge of not being open-minded is making an assumption that the person who is disagreeing with you has not considered their position on the matter. And I think a great example is flat earthers. No one who doesn't believe that the earth is flat, in other words, they think the world is round or a globe, would consider themselves closed-minded by immediately dismissing the statement that the world may be flat. Well, there's a lot of baseline knowledge and a lot of kind of consensus of people who know a lot of things, a lot of other evidence that would suggest that's a proposition you don't necessarily need to be open-minded about. Now, if someone presents me with a proposition from a subfield in quantum mechanics, that is a field that I have absolutely no relevant expertise or knowledge in. I likely need to take a very non-Bayesian approach and be truly open-minded and say, okay, who's presenting this? What are their credentials? What's the potential evidence? Who are the experts that I can engage with to help me filter this? I need to weigh, it could be true, it could be false. Again, most things that we interact with, though, are not going to be truly a 50-50 comparison where the scale is equal. And therefore, I think, similar to the layers and dimensions of the evidence-based pyramid, things are more broad than they seem. And I think that by trying in a conscientious way to bring in either your knowledge, your network of people who may have more knowledge than you, as well as the concepts that run through different areas of knowledge to kind of triangulate a problem and kind of start to change your probabilities or your confidence in whether or not one side is true versus the other. The last little dichotomy or nuance that I want to put into there is that we have this tendency to think in a binary fashion, true or false, yes or no, black or white. And I think while some things truly are binary, and binary thinking can definitely guide our reasoning paths because it makes choices a little more simple, rarely are the complex problems that we're trying to solve truly binary. And therefore there's usually different levels within them and different layers. And one of the things that I would encourage people to consider is, even if a conclusion or a proposition is likely patently false, or a position someone takes you do fundamentally maybe disagree with or strongly disagree with, oftentimes there may be kernels of truth within those propositions or conclusions or points of view. And so what I would say is understand the argument, break it down, and try to find the kernel of truth in there that you can take away that's important. And remember, there's always a dichotomy and there's always more layers. So I think that's all I've got for you this evening. It was good to see you. Have a nice evening, and also have a great weekend.